So my question is, can you be obedient if you're telling your husband what to do?
I would say no, but I would say you probably wouldn't be being a very good husband if you're just telling your wife what to do.
So the question we have today is, should Christian women, or in this case, Catholic women, obey their husbands? Yes, no, and then explain what your reasoning is.
Okay, I would say yes. I guess to start with the basis, are you Christian? I'm just here, just so that we know the base, or are you just trying to
I'm
get my
Catholic.
answer?
No, I'm
You're
Catholic.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome. What's your answer to this?
Well, I don't like to input my opinion too much because
Okay.
I'm really trying to understand what people believe at the different churches. So if I input my opinion too much, then it's not like, I like it to be an unbiased interview.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
It does.
Yeah.
And just for reference, so this is not our home parish.
Okay.
We're just visiting here. We're from Houston.
Okay.
We go to Our Lady of Walsingham there in Houston. I would say yes because God asked them
Okay.
to obey us. He said, wives, obey your husbands. Husbands, love your wives like Christ loved the church. That doesn't make us any less equal. If anything, that just puts way more responsibility on the husbands to be able to, we're responsible for those decisions. Plus, I think it's normal for any relationship for there has to be, when there is a disagreement, somebody has to make the final word.
Right.
It has to be somebody. And I would say because Jesus Christ did say, hey, the husbands are going to lead, the wives are going to, obey their husbands, and the husbands are going to love their wives like Christ loved the church. And then he kind of set that hierarchy, and so we're just following his lead.
Do you think it's okay for women to tell their husbands what to do?
Do I think it's okay for women to tell their husbands what to do? Can you give me an example?
So what I'm going to say first and foremost is I like the way the guy answered first and foremost. And it's funny because the lady, Just Pearl or Pearly, she's a very popular content creator, basically, over 1 million subscribers. And it intrigued me when I first saw these sorts of videos. She's going around asking people, should women obey their husbands? And it's crazy because this wasn't even the one that I saw a snippet of. I saw a different one. Many of the other ones weren't really doing good, right? Which is a shame, but because it showcases the problem that is going around in Christianity today. But this guy, kudos to him, he did very well, right? He answered the question correctly. He said yes, and he backed it up with the Bible. This is not what I was seeing in any of the other snippets I saw from the other videos where she was going around asking this question. It was like, yes, but, and then the but would just kind of just negate everything they had said previously, or it was, I don't know, or it was no. Right? The realness is, as Christians, the problem that many Christians have is they're afraid to just stand on what God actually says. So like this guy did just very nicely, yes, and then he's telling you, he's going through scriptures. The Bible says that a wife should obey her husband. There's nothing wrong with that. Don't be afraid of what the Bible says. Just, God is infinitely wise. He has the best advice possible. So we shouldn't be afraid. And the reason why many people are afraid today is because they're so concerned about what the world has to say about them, more so than what God has to say about them. And that's not the way to live, especially as a Christian. So to me, this doesn't make any sense for people to be afraid of, because just like the Bible says, a wife should obey her husband, the Bible talks about children obeying their parents. Okay. The Bible talks about, even in certain, the Bible talks about, for example, servants obeying their masters. The Bible talks about us obeying the government. The answer should be yes to all of those questions. Now, this is the only caveat. If your husband is telling you to do something sinful, don't listen. If your parents are telling you to do something sinful, don't listen. If your master or your employer is telling you to do something evil, wicked, don't listen. If your government is telling you to do something which is evil, wicked, which goes against God, don't listen. Why? Because we are supposed to obey the same way we are supposed to obey God. So when we obey God, he's the highest level of obedience. So when what he says matters most. So when God is telling a wife, for example, to obey her husband, we just have to say yes and be good Christians about it and not be afraid.
Telling him to do chores, telling him like what to do around the house, like where the kids are going to go to school, just like there's a lot of decisions in a long-term marriage that have to be made.
Correct.
So my question is, can you be obedient if you're telling your husband what to do?
I would say no, but I would say you probably wouldn't be being a very good husband if you're just telling your wife what to do.
Okay.
I would say it should always start with a discussion. You both go through the issue, whatever it is, what school your children should go to. You both say what you think pros and cons are. At the end, hopefully you come to a mutual agreement.
Yeah, but it doesn't always work.
It doesn't always work.
Yeah.
And if, just like in everything else, like at your job,
Right.
your boss gets the final say. And God said the husband's the boss. And so we follow what he says.
Yeah, so that's actually my next question is why is it that women would never tell their boss what to do, but they'll tell their husbands what to do?
Now, before we get to that, it's important because I think I've said it, but I wanted to say explicitly right now. Obedience isn't a bad term. It's not a bad thing. What most people have a negative stigma towards is an abuse of authority, right? And this is the issue, which is real, right? There are people who are jerks, right? And they abuse their power, they abuse their authority. That isn't what a Christian man, a godly Christian man, should be doing. A Christian man, as the guy quoted earlier on, should be loving his wife as Christ loved the church. So obedience, we need to get away from this fear of obedience because, like I said, I gave multiple different examples earlier about what the Bible says about obedience, right? Obedience is a good thing. When we are obedient, when a wife, for example, is obedient to her husband, or a husband is obedient to the government, that is a representation of what it's like to be obedient to God. So that's the reason why we do it. And again, I'm going to say this again, as long as they're not telling you to do something which is sinful, that's it. So
Like, why do the bosses, I'm not saying at this church, but just in general, why do they get more obedience than the husbands?
Oof. Well, I hopefully it's because they feel safer in their marriage to push back. Because I would say the exact same thing about husbands. Like, why do we treat strangers better than we do our wives?
There's no way. Husbands don't treat strangers better.
Are you married?
No.
I will say there are a lot
My
of
parents have been married 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope overall I treat my wife better, but there are times where I will give her more grief than I would a stranger. I would give a stranger
Yeah,
maybe
but you're not
more benefit of the
responsible
doubt.
for a stranger, right?
True.
Yeah.
True.
So it's
Yeah.
like,
and you've got more expectation over what your wife does opposed to a stranger. A stranger, you don't know them. You'd at best probably just have like, what would you say, like just the normal expectation you'd have for someone who's a stranger to do the right thing. But when you're sharing life with someone who knows you in and out and you know them in and out, you've got arguably the highest level of expectation of your spouse than anybody else. So I funny enough, still agree with what he's saying. There are husbands that treat strangers better. But at the flip side, just to go to what the point she's making is, it's most likely because of just expectation. You have a certain level of expectation for your spouse, and that comes through certain times in how you may interact with them based on what they do or what they say.
you know, if you're the one in charge of her, right?
Yeah, and I hope I'm doing a great job taking care of her. But yeah. I think because in that relationship, you feel you're able to let your feelings come out more. And so you may say things or do things that maybe isn't as nice as you would have to a stranger because you do feel more open to let that feeling out.
Why are men so afraid to tell their why are men so afraid to tell their wives to obey them? Because I've done a lot of street signs over the years. I've had feminist is a hate group I've had the most controversial abortion. I have never had more hostility than bringing the word obey to church.
Really?
I've never. And it kind of makes me sad.
The first thing
It kind of makes me so like, it kind of blackpilled me. They called the cops on me, or they're like, yeah. And it's like, no, I don't care. It's part of the job. I'm allowed to be here. So it's like.
And imagine how crazy that is, right? She will go to churches, for example, and look, like, I haven't mentioned this before, but who knows what her intentions are, right? She may just be, look, I just want to get some good content. She may care about church. She may not care about church. To be honest, to me, it's irrelevant because some people are going to be so carried away with the fact that, oh, she's trying to make Christians look bad. Or she okay, like people do that every single day, but that doesn't change how we are supposed to act as we go through life. So I would expect as a Christian for us, when people are presenting us with certain scenarios, asking certain questions, to say the right answer or to not say anything. If you don't want to respond to a question for whatever reason, okay, don't respond. But if you're going to respond, don't say something which goes completely against the Bible. So this is why I'm going out of my way to just say, look, obedience isn't a bad thing. You see, because what the world likes to do is paint obedience, basically just to paint godly things as evil. So when it comes to these different scenarios, obey is like some bad word now. But if you go to your workplace, for example, and your boss is telling you to do something, you are obeying your boss. Just because they didn't say, oh, you're obeying me, it doesn't mean anything. That's what you are doing. So because we're categorizing certain things in certain ways, there's nothing wrong with it. But we have to get back and away from this negative stigma that comes from the world and thinking, okay, cool. Just because the world says this or views it this way, we have to all of a sudden be afraid and we can't actually say what the Bible says.
But I just kind of, it blackpills me a little bit because I'm like, why is obey, why is it a controversial word?
Well, and
the kids have to obey the parents, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And at the church, we all have to obey God.
Yeah.
That is his calling for us. We obey him.
Yeah.
And in this particular case, he says, hey, husbands, lead your family.
Yeah.
I'm sure he has good reasons for that.
Yeah.
I'm sure we can think of secular reasons why, the husbands may be better leaders than the wives. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure we can come up with, theological reasons why he may have made it that way. But he specifically did. And so.
Do you believe in the natural order of the world, like God, men, women, children?
Definitely God, humans. The order between men, women, children, I think that's more of a responsibility thing and not, whereas like we are definitely not equal with God, mm-hmm. but men, women, children are all equal in their humanity. Mm-hmm. But do they have different roles to mm-hmm. play? Absolutely. Mm-hmm. And does the world see those roles as one has power over the other? Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, does that really mean that? No.
Well, why is that a bad thing?
To have power over someone or to have like this particular hierarchy?
Well, I don't have a boss, but if I used to, right? Like, if he has power over me, I don't think that's a bad thing.
No.
Like, it's only a bad thing.
It is the order of things. Yeah. He's the boss. That's his job.
Yeah. So, like, why would that be a bad thing for the man to have power over the woman?
I don't think it is.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a bad thing. I think the world has labeled that as bad. And they see, I think the problem is the world is out searching for power and they think they want power. Mm-hmm. And not to be cliche and go all like Spider-Man, but like that power comes with responsibility. Mm-hmm. And I think most people, they want the power, but they don't really want the responsibility.
Yeah.
And so they.
See, what's actually crazy about what this guy's saying, I can see it now. There's probably so many people out there, so many people who are probably professing Christians who will listen to what this guy said. And they'll be like, oh my God, he's so chauvinistic. He's so pompous. How could he say that? Like, they'll say all this negative stuff. And it's crazy that they won't even know that all of the stuff he's saying is biblical. So by them attacking him just because it's coming from a man, instead of them stepping back a second and saying, okay, cool. Is what he's saying biblical? Or is what he's just saying him talking from his bottom? They won't past those two scenarios. They'll just, okay, yeah, like, no, I don't like what he said, so it has to be true. Guys, that's not the wise thing to do. I'll just put it like that. And I like the way he said, right, look, husbands, wives, and children, we are all human, which is true. We are all humans, right? We're all equal in the nature of what we actually are. But like he said, we have roles, right? So God has made it so that the wife obeys the husband, right? And the children obeys the mother and the father. So we're all equal as humans, but God has given us roles, and the children obey the parents, the wife obeys the husband, and everybody is supposed to obey God. So, guys, hopefully this video helped you. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and don't forget to react righteously. God bless.